All right, everybody, we now have our player movement pretty much dialed in. Did make a couple of changes to the code. I just want to kind of go through. What we've done is we've added 2 new variables. And so you may want to pause the video and code out each part as I talk about it, or wait till I'm done. We created, we basically want to get our input in update. Since update is called once per frame, we only need to get the input once per frame. If we put the input into fixed update, it might actually go through a frame and not update it, which means it's not going to have as good a performance. So we want a smooth gameplay. So what we do is we create our input in the update method. But in order to do that, we have to declare 2 more variables, one to represent the axis, the horizontal axis. So we create this, it's private, it's a floating point, which means it's a precise number. And we call it getAxisHorizontal. We set it to 0 because usually when you set a number and you haven't done anything, you usually just set it to 0. It's whatever its default off state would be. And we create another one, this is a Boolean, and this represents whether the space key is being pressed, it's down or not. We set it to false because before you play the game, we're just going to assume the user is not hitting the space bar. And then an update, which is going to be called on a regular ongoing basis, very smoothly, we're going to get our 2 inputs we had from before. So the getAxisHorizontal now equals input.accessHorizontal. And then we get the key down space, which is where we do the input get key code.space. This was coded identical, the input's identical to what you did later. We're going to go down to the fixed update now. And then what we want to do is the movement variable is no longer set to input. We're just going to set it to that variable that we created in update. Okay. And if you think about it, updates being sampled once per frame, this may happen more than once per frame, or it might happen in between frames. Either way, it will still have whatever value was last gathered through input, and it will apply that to movement. And then that way we don't have to change line 31 at this point. We can keep it as it was. And the clamp and all that are the same. We don't have to do anything else there. And then what we're going to do is on the jumping mechanic, we're now going to use that other variable, which is the get key down space and is grounded. And that's it. That will help out your player controller script. But what we want to do now is we want to go back and give our player something to get. We're going to put some objects that the player can do. We'll call it a pickup. It's going to be a prefab. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to right click on the scene and we're going to add a game object. It's going to be a 3D cube. So it's very similar to the platform. And we're going to convert it into a prefab and edit it. A couple things we want to do is we're going to start with a reset on the cube like we did before. It's under transform, click on the gear, click on reset, sets it to a position. Now we're going to change its position. We're going to bring its Y position up. And so what we want to do is we're going to move that up, and we can give it an exact number, or I can just click on here, move it to the right, drag it, sorry, that's mine. So drag it up, we're going to move it above, and right about here. We're going to be placing this in multiple spots anyway, but we want to put it above the sphere for now. And we're going to do a little rotation on here. And so what we can do, I guess Z is not changing it. We're going to rotate its Y a little bit. We're going to rotate its X. And let's do the Z rotation. Okay. So we're going to give it kind of an interesting effect. And so we're going to, and let me get you the number. Okay, so in the end, here are the values that I've decided to come up with, and you can adjust it, you can move things around. We set its position to 0, and I made it 3.04, but you can just change it to 3 or whatever. I changed its Z position at -0.2, which moves it just a little bit away, or is it towards me? I forget which one. Rotation, we set it X of 15, a Y of 30, a Z of 35, and we scaled it back to 90% of its original size, like so. We need to name it now. We're going to call it pickup, so we want to rename that to pickup. And let's go ahead and do that. Capital P, pickup. We're going to move pickup, if we haven't done it, into prefabs. So on prefab, now we have platform and pickup, and so we're going to edit in the prefab what we do from here. And so what we want to do is, let's see if I have anything on here that I have missed. Let's just give this some interesting behavior. What we're going to do is we're going to create a rotate script that will rotate the object. It's a pretty straightforward script. So what we're going to do is we're going to, in our scripts, by the way, it bothers me that the scripts folder has a lowercase s, so I'm going to fix that right now. We'll do a quick rename. It's going to mean that in Git it's going to make some changes, but it shouldn't be too bad. So we right-click on here, and we're going to create a new JavaScript. C# script, we're going to call it rotate, capital R. Actually, I have to do it in here. Rotate, like so. I believe that's what we're calling it. And let's go ahead and drag that to our pickup. Actually, we should probably put it in the, well, we'll just drag it over here to the pickup for now, and then we'll put it in the prefab in just a moment. Okay, so we have it on pickup. At this point, pickup now has the rotate script. We're going to edit it by double-clicking on the script, and there it is, public class, rotate, mono behavior. And we're going to start by giving it a variable. We're just going to basically determine how much we're going to rotate it every frame. It's a vector 3. And it's rotate underscore amount equals new vector 3. And we're going to give it a value of 15, 30, 35. Like so. And then in our update method, we're going to rotate the transform. And remember that transform is the object itself. So we put a rotate, and then it's rotate amount. This is called a Euler, by the way. And we're going to multiply it by this thing called the time dot delta time. Like so. Okay, so that's what the code looks like. Let's go ahead and save our changes. Let's make sure that it works to begin with. So we're going to go over to Unity. We're going to try playing it and see if it rotates. Wait for it. Yeah. So now we have this cool little floating object rotating in the sky that what we're going to want to do is be able to collect it when we collide with it. I'm going to pause that at this point. If you know that's working, what we want to do is go into prefab and make sure that our pickup has that script on it. So I'm going to double click on the pickup. You'll notice that we don't see the script there. So what we can do is we can add that component. Okay, so what I probably should have done is not put that into prefab till I was done. So I'm going to delete that and then drag pickup again now that the pickup has the script on it. So now that will work. And what we can now do is drag the pickup and move it into other places. Plus, we can now access the rotate script and if there's any other scripting that we need to do. From here on out, before we add any more, let's get all the behavior of the pickup working before we drag and drop any more onto the stage. Okay, once we have this in the prefab, what we're going to do is we're going to tag the pickup, and we're going to use the tag to allow us to be able to make this work with our collision, so that when we collide with the pickup, it will destroy the instance of that object and will allow us to add to our own score. So we're going to tag it. We don't have one yet, and so we're going to add the tag, and this one we're going to click a little plus sign on here, and we're going to call it pickup, little p. I'm going to hit enter, and I want to select that tag, so I'm going to click on pickup again, and under the tag, I'm going to tag it as pickup. This will allow us to be able to, I'm like blanking out on here. This will allow us to now make a collision with the object. And so we're going to be looking for the tag. We're going to make this a trigger. So I want you to click on the little box. This is for the pickup. Make it a trigger. So this will trigger a collision event. And notice that it's part of the collider, right? So the collider now will act as a trigger to tell us that we've collided or not, okay? So what's the point of making it a trigger? Well, first of all, if we set it to have trigger collisions, we don't need to use the Unity physics engine. It's going to make it, it's going to simplify the coding to determine whether we've collided with it or not. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over to our player controller script, and what we need to do is create a variable to identify that pickups tag. So we're going to go back over here to the scroll, not this one, we got to open up player controller. I still have it in here. So where we have all of our variables, we're going to go over here and we're going to make this public. It's a string, so it's a character. So we're going to go ahead and create a variable to represent the actual pickup tag. And because remember we called it pickup, that is a string. It's using characters, so it's gonna compare the string. And so what we want is we need a new collision event, and it's like update or start. We're gonna do it after fixed update, and we're gonna do it after the is grounded. And so I'm going to go over here. Let's just go ahead and expand is grounded, scroll down, go up. And on here, we're going to make this void. And it's on trigger, what do we call it? On trigger enter. Oh, look at that. I start to hit it, it was highlighted, I hit enter, and it gave me that whole code. That's really nice. And then, what is this collider other? We're going to do this. We're going to write other, okay, dot, game object, dot. We do this set active. We set it, to false. Okay, what does this say? Okay, remember I told you it's a trigger now, right? So when we collide with it, it's going to call up this trigger enter, right? And so what we want to know is what the other item happens to be, okay? And if the other thing, oh, well, we have to change it here. Sorry, I missed a line of code. We have to check to see what the other is, right? If other dot game object, oh, not game component, get component, it's game object. Hold on one more time. Game object dot. Now what we want to do is we want to compare the tag. We want to see which tag is it. Okay, so we're going to see what pickup tag it is. If the other object matches the same pickup tag, then the other object that we've collided with, by the way, you can kind of guess what the other object is. This is the player controller script, so it's not the player, it's the other object. And we're going to set its, basically we're going to set active, we're going to deactivate the whole item. It should be gone when we're done. Save your changes. Okay, go back to Unity and test it out. So what should happen is when I collide with it, it should go away. If it ever runs. Oh no, it didn't. Why didn't it? Well, let's take a look at our player object. Pickup tag. We never specified what that is. We made it public, so we have to put it in here. Pickup. Okay. So player, under pickup tag, you add pickup. Let's see if it works now. There we go. It's gone. So we just clicked it. All right, so at this point, we can now drag our pickup objects and move more objects onto the stage in various locations. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit by double clicking where it says main camera, and I'm going to drag some more pickup items to various locations on the window, some higher, some lower. some enticing the user to go off to the side and possibly die. I know, it's me, isn't it? So rude. Go ahead and run it. You see our various objects. Let's see how many of these we can pick up. And there's one. Oh, I should have just gotten the other one while I was up there. And at this point, we're not getting anything with the score, but we could later. All right, so at this point, you should have your objects. It should be working. And the last thing you want to do is make sure you're doing this. You do a git status on your git, and you're going to want to modify it, that we added basically a pickup item and a pickup mechanic. So I'm going to go ahead and add that, git add dot, git commit -m, adding pickup, prefab, and pickup mechanic. And I meant to put a quote there. And now I'm going to push git push origin development, so that I know I have all of my changes up to date. When I'm done there, I'm done working for the day, and I can move on my merry way. Thank you so much for watching. Look, there we go. Got it. Perfect. I can add that. It's only 16 minutes.